Welcome to another Pait Group webinar. Anna Joy of Sharepoint, we'll throw that out there, webinar. Richard, Ryan, and I are here to talk with you today about the current state of the template. And Ryan's going to give us the inside scoop of what is a template in Sharepoint Online. And Joe, I see you, man. When we say template, what is it really? Is it a cookie cutter? Is it a guideline? Is it a tease? What is it? Let's talk about it today.
Is it all those things?
All that and more.
It might be all those things. If we have never met before, I am thrilled that you are here. My name is Joy Apple. I am a modern workplace strategist and MVP with Microsoft at Pait Group. Basically, what I do is I help people figure out how to get from where they are today inside of whatever platform they might currently be on into the wonderful world of Microsoft 365. I've been doing it for a minute. This is an old slide apparently, because I'm actually at the 13 mark because I'm old. I am joined with me and my workplace twin, Richard Calderon. Richard, how's it going?
Good afternoon. Good to see everybody. As Joy mentioned, we're essentially workplace twins at Pait. We have the same role. I'm also a modern workplace strategist. And like Joy said, our role is really to just try to understand all things that you as a company and even individually are trying to accomplish to further your business objectives, and then bring that specialty knowledge and expertise around Microsoft 365 to figure out ways that we can help align the technology to achieve those business goals. That really, in a nutshell, is what we do. And same as Joy, I've been doing this kind of thing for quite some time now, really kind of going on 20 plus years. Hard to believe. And so things centered around strategy and change management, those are all kind of areas, especially for me. And then also want to introduce our cohort here, Ryan Keller. Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure, sounds good. I don't sound nearly as impressive as these guys. I just make things look pretty mostly. But no, I've been doing SharePoint also for apparently a decade and a half now. It's, boy, to tell you what, that sure makes a guy feel old. But most of that time has been spent doing branding and design in the SharePoint workspace. So back in the day, it was all master pages and CSS and page layouts and custom this and that. Now that Microsoft has kind of taken away my crayons, I work a lot more in the modern sites, which in this point in time means a lot more things like templates and themes and different kinds of coloring. It's more like, paint by numbers these days, but it's good. It's a whole different world, and there's a lot of different things you can do with it that you couldn't do before, and it makes life a lot easier for people. So that's kind of what we're looking at today.
And we love easy.
That's right. We do love easy. We totally love easy.
Man, you talk about master pages and page layouts, Ryan. It's like there was a time when someone would say, you just customize the master page, but then send a chill up your spine. Like, you're gonna what?
Can you not?
That's where SharePoint came about.
Yes, I think that's definitely part of the case. So,
origin.
Well, we are privileged to have Ryan on the call here today to talk about this topic. As we always do, we just like to toss out a question or two just to give a little bit of a sense of, who's who in the room and so on and so forth. Let's go with, and I can't remember, Stacy, I apologize if I did not already send you the link to this poll. Did I send you the link to the poll or not? And if not, let me do that for you real quick. I'm going to drop this in chat window, everybody. So link to this poll. Again, basic questions of just sort of like, who are you? Just kind of always interested to understand. And then we got a couple of questions for you here. Just one centered around the site template functionality, which is just, what do you think? Do you think it's cool and really great? Have you started using it yet at this point? Do you think it's sort of okay? And maybe it's a little lacking and could really use some additional capabilities. Or do you feel kind of meh about it? Maybe it could be better. Or did you not even realize? And that's why you decided to join this webinar today. We're happy to have you here, obviously, all of you. And then we were trying to decide, okay, what's kind of going on right now that's kind of exciting and happening out in the world. And if you're interested in movies and you're willing to kind of think about going back to the movie theaters again, the new James Bond film is on the cusp of releasing here this next week. And so interested to know, too, if you guys are interested in planning to go see that as well. So let's take a look. We've got 10 responses so far. We have a good number of IT pro folks. Thanks again for joining. And one folks from the business area. Again, welcome. In terms of the new applying a site template functionality, it looks like it's kind of neck and neck here between didn't really know it was an option. So great. Again, hopefully you'll get a lot of good info here from today's session. Certainly some okay, it's probably could do more. Totally get a few of the sort of kind of. And then no one really says it's like super amazing at the moment. And I can't honestly say that I'm super surprised about that. Ryan, Joy, how about you? We'll toe the Microsoft company line here. Yeah, we'll toe the Microsoft company line here and say that, no, it actually is. And then in terms of the James Bond movies, like, okay, all right, probably not. No worries. Yeah, everybody, you might be a James Bond fan or not, or you might just be the, it just has not been the same since Sean Connery kind of thing. So, totally respect that too, right? But at least one person that's just like, can't wait. So I think I'm probably going to try to go see it for sure. Awesome. So again, at any point in time during the webinar, if you hadn't had a chance to yet, feel free to click that link and respond to the poll. We're happy to get your responses. So thanks everybody for jumping in. Matthew is waiting for on demand, and Joe says he's going to be out of town that weekend. Okay. Definitely can wait on demand for sure in that case. So, all right, let's go back.
Templates.
Yeah.
So, we had quite a conversation just this morning about this slide, kind of doing a little prep, because it's like, do we go into the whole gory details of the history of templates? And it's like, if you've lived through that, I mean, we feel your pain. We did too. But it was really great because I want every homepage to look the same. Okay, jump to jump to jump to jump to jump. And then Modern came and we all went to Ryan and we said, Ryan, why can't every page look the same? What's the deal, man?
Because Microsoft, Now that was a conversation we had almost with every client when Modern started rolling out and we were working with them strategizing, and they said, well, we want all our department sites to have the same look and feel. Well, you're going to have to build it manually, but you can do that, I guess. So yeah, especially when Modern first rolled out, there really was no such thing as any kind of templating whatsoever. They just completely took that away.
Except for the default homepage when you create a site.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're welcome.
If you want them all to look the same with the default homepage, then go for it.
You're good to go.
But yeah, also, back in those days gone by, we generally owned our own SharePoint worlds, our SharePoint farms. They were on premise. We had a SharePoint admin who could do whatever they wanted. We could install custom branding. We could install whatever we wanted. We owned everything in there, and we could very easily make templates of things like pages, page layout templates, or make a team site and save that as a template and then reuse that over and over and over. But nowadays, not so much. Microsoft owns SharePoint Online, and they don't really want people like us getting in there and messing things up and cloning things and all that kind of stuff.
Boy, did we mess some things up for many years, right?
Oh, yes, we did. Try to upgrade with custom solutions? No. But that's why we all have jobs, right?
I suppose.
It is job security. Well, and, I think it's safe to say that there are still, I'm going to say it because, ladies and gentlemen that are on the webinar, we trust you. We know you're going to always follow the best practice. There are things out there that you can do that maybe shouldn't because of those updates that just come out so quickly.
Exactly. That is the other thing too, is that there are changes that are rolling out constantly. Like every week, there's probably some new little thing. If you ever check the SharePoint and Microsoft 365 roadmap, it's got a lot of stuff on it and a lot of cool looking stuff too coming out. But it's constantly changing, and so they don't want us getting in there and playing with things that are going to break with one of their future updates. But that being said, we do now have some kind of template-y type options. So we'll talk about 3 of those today. We'll talk about page templates. So we can actually now save a page as a template, which is cool. I mean, there's some caveats to all of these, which we'll talk about. But basically, we do have the ability to create a page, save it as a template, and reuse that. So that's cool. One of the limitations, though, that we'll kind of talk about is that you can only use it in the current site collection within the browser. That's one of those unfortunate limitations. They give us something, but they don't give us the whole pie. But we do have the ability to create those page templates now, which is cool. Now we can technically get in there with PowerShell and get technical and extract a template from that template and deploy that throughout our tenant. But within the browser, we're limited to just the current site collection, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's definitely a use case for it, and we've used that plenty of times. But there are, like I said, some caveats to all of these different templating options here. So next up is list templates. So before, we used to have the option to create our list, add our columns, add whatever we wanted to it, and then we could just go into our list settings and save that list as a template. But that option doesn't exist anymore. But there's the caveat. There are still list templates Microsoft has given us recently with some pre-configured templates that they have built. We do have the ability to go out and traverse our site and find another site that has a template on it or a list on it that we want to reuse. So we can actually reuse a list from another site collection in whatever site collection we want. So that's pretty cool. And the other fairly recent addition is that we do also now have the ability to make custom list templates. Again, how's your PowerShell skill? Because it does require PowerShell to do that. Take a look at what that looks like real quick. We're not going to get into PowerShell or anything, nerdy and technical like that today, but just wanted to point out that it is available. It is possible to save your list as a template and extract it with PowerShell and put it in your site to be able to use as a template. If you don't want to have to go out and find whatever random site has this cool list on it that you want to reuse, you can save it as a template and get that list into your current site. And finally, site templates. They are formerly known as site designs in the UI. So you might have noticed when you click your settings gear, you could say apply a site design. That has changed to site templates. Don't let the name fool you. It is the same thing. Also, don't let the name fool you because it's not actually a template still. It's kind of a template, and it's reusable like a template, but it's not actually a true template that we had before where you set up your site, you saved your entire site as a template, and then you could just make, rubber stamp a whole bunch of copies of that site. What we have now is basically a set of instructions that we give SharePoint in what is called a site script. And within that site script, we can do things like set the theme, set our custom theme. We can set our company logo. We can change some of the header options. We can edit the navigation, like remove some of those out of the box links, add current links that we want. We can join it to a hub site. There's a whole list of things that we can actually do in what they call a template. But again, it's kind of like a to-do list for SharePoint. When you create a site and apply the template, we can actually have SharePoint run through this checklist of things like make me a list, make me a library, set my branding, set my logo, save yourself a lot of clicks. So that's kind of what we mean when we say we have a site template. Again, that's all done in PowerShell. So there's nothing in the UI, for being very visual, there's nothing visually in the UI that lets you do this. So you do have to get into PowerShell and do this, or maybe get your SharePoint admin a donut or something and bribe him to do it for you. But you can have a template that you can apply to a site. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit as well.
I like that analogy of a to-do list for SharePoint. I mean, everybody knows how much I love my to-do lists. So
that's right.
Yeah. But it's interesting though that there is this ability to create some instructions and get it done. Now, I personally would go find Steven on our team, Steven Wilson, and say, hey, this thing, I need it, because he's the one that's always in PowerShell doing all that amazing stuff. But advantages for sure. Some of those limitations I see on the slide we're going to talk through. So some of the stuff can get you there, but maybe not all the way there,
exactly.
Right?
Yep. So that's one thing we did want to point out is what we can do, but also what you can't do. So just to set some expectations, really. So, jumping back to page templates, I mean, we talked about a lot of these already, but, they're really useful for creating the same type of page over and over. So maybe you have, your communications department manages your intranet news. And every time they make a news article, they want it all to have, a consistent look and feel. So when you click on that, you immediately know, oh, this is the news page. So maybe they set an image in the header, or they pre-configure some image areas on the page, or they add a couple of web parts, and that way they always have a consistent starting point. Another use case for this also that we've used in the past is some clients have multiple sections on their homepage of different kinds of news. So maybe there is like a featured news rotator banner, and then further down there's like general company announcements. We have those news web parts configured to pull a specific kind of page that's maybe been tagged with metadata from the pages library. And what we can do is we can set up a template and tag that template with the appropriate category of news that it belongs in. So if you want to create a featured news page, you just say, I want to create a new page, and select your featured news template. And that way it saves you that extra step of having to select which category that news page is going to go in, especially since it's not always consistent or intuitive to find where you go to change that. So that's another use case that we've used before multiple times. Like we talked about before, one of the limitations of the page layout is that it is limited to the same site collection, unless you want to get PowerShell involved. And but if you're trying to just make a bunch of news articles, or you're creating a set of instruction pages, or you just want all the pages within your the pages within your site to have a relatively consistent look, that's where your advantage comes in. So moving on to, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say too, if you hear the Matthew, yeah, PowerShell, wah wah, it's kind of my response to that. But listen, you do the hard work up front. Anytime you go through and do an implementation, right, the deployment, getting all that work done. I've seen one of my client point contacts hop on the call just a minute ago. It's work, but when you get that work done, you start to sit back and get the return on the investment of all that elbow grease. So you run that PowerShell script to find those templates to put in all your communication sites. And then, except for the ad hoc requests here and there, you're done. Right. So it's not like you're going to be in there having to do it all the time once you get it set up.
Yeah, the limitations are, they're a little bit of a limitation, but like you said, you do it once and there it is. You don't have to keep redoing it over and over, which is nice.
Even does it once and there it is.
Yep,
Let's
exactly.
be clear on that.
So getting into list templates, again, we'll go through the advantages and disadvantages, things we kind of covered a little bit earlier, but we can create the same type of list in lots of different sites. The nice thing here is that these list templates really are almost a true template. So they will copy over all the list settings, like your views, your columns, any column formatting that you've done, or view formatting that you've done. But when you're making your list, you can only make one at a time. Then you just go up and create a new list, do the whole same thing again. Depends on how many lists you need to make. So if you're making 5 or 6 different lists or libraries and creating all these columns in every single site, that could get tedious. And that is where, a more of a site template approach does become advantageous here. Um, the cool thing is that we can, again, browse our entire site that we have access to. So if HR has a really great list and we want to reuse that list on all these other department sites, we can browse for HR's nice list and then copy that over to these other sites to reuse that. But again, that is only one at a time. If you're making a whole bunch of department sites that all need the same lists, for example, that's again where that site template is going to come in play, because we can tell SharePoint in its to-do list, make me these 3 libraries, add these 5 columns, create these views for these lists, and it just does it. It doesn't complain about it. It just goes through all of it all at once. You don't have to click onesie twosie through your list settings and add all these different lists. But if you just need to make a list once in a while, we do have a list template that we can use. So pros and cons of that.
Mhm.
And finally, site templates. Templates. So again, this is the to-do list for SharePoint, essentially. The advantages of the site template, obviously, being a kind of sort of template, is it's reusable in other site collections. It gives us that consistency when we're setting things up. Depending on what we're using it for, we do have the ability to reduce the number of clicks we have to do to set up things like the theme and the logo, repetitive, boring tasks that we don't maybe want to do 27 times as we're building out our site. Especially if we want to remove, say, the out-of-the-box navigation, or we don't want to have to go through all the steps to adding a site to a hub site every single time we create it. We can have these sites be automatically created and then automatically run through this little checklist of things to do. They are mostly non-destructive. I say mostly because there are certain things that if we remove the navigation and we decide, oh, gee, I really wish I had my pages link back in the navigation, it just wiped that out because that's what we told it to do. But it's not going to delete any data in a library. So if we run a site script or site design, site template, terminology, right? If we run a site template that adds a list to our site, and then we decide later on, oh, you know what, we need to add a couple more columns to this list, we can rerun that same site template, and anything that's already been done is going to skip over. So if it's already set the logo, it's going to skip that. If it's already set the theme, it'll skip that. Make the library. Oh, the library's already there, but oh, I see I have these 2 new columns I need to add to this library. It's just going to add them without blowing your data away, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
You can reapply those site templates multiple times without really screwing anything up. Probably the biggest limitation and the biggest source of disappointment for myself and most people we talk to about this is that we don't actually get a page template applied when we apply a site template. So even though Microsoft has recently changed this interface and they've given us this fancy way of applying some of their pre-configured site templates, they get to have custom page layouts that change the home page of your site. We don't get to do that with our custom site templates. That's, again, where PowerShell is going to be our friend if we really want to go down that route. But we can do pretty much everything we want with our site except change the layout of the home page. So that's one thing. When they announced these changes, we were very excited about the idea, the possibility that, oh, gee, maybe we can actually set up a true department template and pre-configure this page layout here with this set of web parts and this header and this and that. No, it just doesn't quite work that way. It's just a new fancy name of calling site designs and applying those templates, but it's still something. So we don't want to completely discount it because it really truly is useful, and it is very powerful way to build out your sites.
So just kind of revisiting that important limitation that you said, because I know I've heard that from several of our customers when asking about templates, is that whole idea, again, back in the old days on premises, you had the ability for a business user, for that matter, it didn't have to be a technical person at all, could create a SharePoint site that's maybe it's for a project, and they kind of laid certain web parts out and they rearranged and so forth. And then were able to save that as a project template in SharePoint so that they could then create as many project sites as they needed from that template. And it was all based on the UI. But basically what you're saying here is the limitation in the current site template, the way that it works, is you don't have that advantage or luxury of being able to have somebody who's, again, more of a business user to create all the stuff they want in a UI and then have some magic button that says save this as a template, which can be reused. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's just not available.
Exactly. That's unfortunately exactly it.
Comment in here about I want my own custom lookbook. Yes.
Yes, don't we all?
Yes.
That was the dream. That was my hope.
The dream. I'm an optimist. Come on.
Maybe it'll happen. They've given us some good stuff, so maybe it'll happen.
Yeah.
So this slide here is just kind of shows you what this to-do list looks like for SharePoint. So a site design or a site template consists of one or more site scripts. So our site script is basically just a JSON file. You can kind of see as you look through that, even though it's looks like code and it looks scary, it's really fairly intuitive to see what it's doing. So basically, it just consists of a set of actions. So our first action is apply the theme. Okay, what theme do we want to apply? We want to apply the one that's called company theme. Next, we want to set the site branding. So we want to make sure we're using the mega menu. We want to set the header layout to the standard size instead of the compact size. We want to change the background of the header to be the strong color or our main primary color. So that darker color. So we can do things like setting some of the branding properties on the site here. If we want to make sure that the footer is always showing, we can set that to true. Or if we don't like the footer, we can hide that. Then next up, we have that set the site logo. So then we just give it a URL for our logo file that's somewhere in SharePoint that everyone can access. So again, running through these saves you a lot of clicks, so you don't have to keep going to that change look menu. Open up the header, apply your logo, apply your theme. Then this is just a snippet of a much longer site script here, but you can see we're starting to remove some of those navigation links at the bottom there. Essentially it's walking through and asking, we're going to remove the navigation link. That's our action. Well, which one are we removing? We're removing that home link. I think when I get to the demo, we're actually going to see that piece in action. But essentially, this is the to-do list right here. So again, the site template uses these site scripts. As you're setting that up in PowerShell, you install these site scripts, again, using PowerShell, and they become available within your tenant to reference. So maybe you have a site script that only removes the navigation or builds out a custom navigation. Maybe you have another one that creates a list with a whole bunch of columns. Maybe you have a second one that creates a document library and applies some views. So you can have lots of site scripts that build out your template. Some people like to keep them in one gigantic script. Some people like to break them out into pieces so you can edit one piece without having to worry about ruining your entire site script because one misplaced comma and this whole thing disappears. It gets mad at you. There is some really good documentation on this. If you go to Google and just type in site design JSON, it's the first option that pulls up, and essentially you can copy and paste the code snippets there to create your own. It's really not super difficult, but it does get technical. You do need to get in with PowerShell, which again is why you probably need to bring some donuts to the office if you don't have access or don't have the skill set to use PowerShell. That's when your SharePoint admin will probably really appreciate you before asking to open up PowerShell to do this kind of stuff for you.
Yeah.
But that document here that walks you through these settings, the Google Site Design JSON, it's very thorough. That's the one right there.
That's the one.
It.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to make sure. I'm going to drop that link in the
Yes.
window since it was requested here. So
the link is very long and ugly to include in the
there we
slide.
go. Oh,
It's
Joe,
much
thank you.
easier
Joe beat me to it. Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Awesome.
Quick.
Much easier to say site design JSON in Google than
Yeah.
have people try and copy a long, ugly URL. But that's the page. So essentially, you just copy that first block of code and then find on the right hand side your actions that you want to do and work your way through it. There are ways to pull site scripts from existing lists. If you have a very complicated list that you've already built and you don't want to have to go through and manually construct this, you can actually extract a site script from an existing list. Again, say it with me now, using PowerShell. So
If this were an after-hours webinar, that could be a fun game.
Everyone would be passed out by now. Sorry, we don't want to give anyone alcohol poisoning. That's why we do it in the day.
I'm Irish.
So,
day drinking is a thing. Day drinking is a thing.
That's it. So once we have that site script created, or we've pulled site scripts from our existing lists, then we add the site template. So again, they consist of one or more site scripts. The PowerShell commandlet that you're looking for if you're wanting to Google this is add-spo site design, and yes, PowerShell still calls it a site design.
Because why would they change it?
Because nomenclature and names and stuff like that. And then below that is kind of just a very ugly sample of what that PowerShell script would look like in case anyone needs to start day drinking or whatever. There's add-spo site design. We give it a title, we give it a description. We tell it which web template it goes to. So where it says web template 68, why would you ever know that? Web template 68 means that it's a communication site. If you say web template 64 means that this template will apply to a team site. And then we also can give it a fancy thumbnail URL. And that is after we tell it which site script or site scripts that we want to use once we install those. And then we go back to the browser to apply that template. So once we've done all our PowerShell mess, then everyone can go into the browser and just apply the template, and it'll look like it was nothing and no work at all, but really the secret and that it was really kind of a chore. It's really not that bad once you actually get into it. But we did want to point out the fact that it is not as cut and dry as it used to be when you would say save as a template and it would just be available.
Mm-hmm.
It does involve a little bit of technical know-how, I guess, with PowerShell, but it is still possible to make yourself a template.
The web template 68 or web template 64 just for some reason made me think about executing order 66. If you're a Star Wars fan like anyone, it just sort of jumps out at me, kind of like, anyway. Sorry, I had to nerd out, Star Wars nerd out there for just a second.
What does this look like live?
Yeah,
Ryan.
what does this look like? You want to grab the screen share there, Ryan? Go right ahead.
All righty.
Joe, you're not the only one wondering that. So were there lots of these other before? What are the next ones going to be? Do the lookbook templates own any of them? I don't know.
All righty. Oh, go ahead, Joy. Sorry.
There's a question here that says, does this work in the PNP?
Sorry, say that one more time. Does it work?
Does this work in the PNP?
The PNP?
So is there anything in the patterns and practices stuff
Yes,
that kind of ties
actually,
in?
yeah, it does. Patterns and practices does actually play into this very nicely. They do even have more options. In fact, if you're looking to save your page template and extract your page templates using PowerShell, that the only way to do that actually is using the PNP stuff. There is no official Microsoft PowerShell commandlet for extracting your page. So you do actually need to use the PNP module for that piece. But you can extract a template and it makes an XML file for you. And then you apply that again using the PNP PowerShell. So I hope that helps. Maybe at some point I may have to do a more PowerShell heavy demo webinar on this kind of stuff, just to show exactly what the whole process looks like.
Words are golden. We'll get it on the calendar.
That's right. It's been said. It's recorded. I have witnesses now.
Yep.
Stacy's going to hold me to it.
Let's do it. Done. Done, Scott. We got this.
So real quick, we just kind of wanted to run through what this all looks like in the browser. You know, PowerPoint slides are super exciting, but what does this actually look like? So this is just a site that I created right before we jumped on here, and this is what we get the first time we fire up a newly created site. So they want us to start using these templates here. So they give us this pop-up here, and then this little banner on the side that shows a few options like, do you want to apply a template? Do you want to, change the look of your site? Maybe we want to start looking at those, but maybe later. We'll get to that in just a second, but I kind of wanted to just go through what some of these different templating pieces look like in case people on the call aren't familiar with some of these templating options here. So first thing, what I'm going to do, this is again just a completely out of the box, nothing added to it SharePoint site. I'm going to say I want to create, let's do it just a new news post here. So they give us, again, they're kind of out of the box template-y kind of pages here. They look very nice, but I'm just going to start with my own and say I'm going to start with a blank one. And then maybe in this case, I want to maybe add in a picture of a cheeseburger because it's almost lunchtime for me and I'm really hungry. And this is cheeseburger news. This is my author tag here. We can leave that, I suppose. And maybe on this one, I'm just going to change this to the 2/3, 1/3 split. Maybe I want to add in an image web part here. But I'm not going to actually add in an image yet. I just want to have this image web part available for people who are going to come in and start adding this. Let me add in a little bit of placeholder text. Your news story here. And then maybe we want, I don't know, a call to action or something. And I'm going to go ahead and configure this just a little bit. Change. Let's just add a background image. That looks delicious. And type something here, and then we'll configure the button. Let's do paigroup.com.
Yeah.
Learn more. All right, so now if I save this as a draft, okay, this page exists here. Cool. All right, but what if I want to actually save this as a template? The way we do that, let me close this out of the way here. And actually, just to make this a little bit different, let me change the layout here so it's not the standard overlap. Let's just do the image and title style for that header. It's a little, not super obvious you can do this, but there is this little arrow right up here next to save as draft. And if we click that, we get the option to save this as a template. So what it's going to do is it's going to copy what we just did, and then it's going to ask us, what do you want to call this template here? So I want to call this cheeseburger news page. So anytime I make a new news page, we're going to start with this exact setup here. So now I can click on Save Pages Template. And we get a nice little note here when we open this up that this page template is saved on the site here. Now, if I look in my pages library, we have a folder right here called templates. And if I open that up, there is my cheeseburger news page.
Mhm.
If we were to add a column here, say, add a choice column, I don't know, we want to call this feature.
Rare, medium, and well done.
Exactly. Page type. There we go. I can type. Then we can also actually associate that. Let's see if I edit this page template and open up my template details. Normally it says page details, but since I'm in a template, they changed this button to template details, but the pane here is the same. This slide out tool pane. And now I can actually set this page type to whatever I want. If I want to change this to featured news or announcement or whatever, this metadata will persist every time I make a copy of this page using the template. So there we go. Save page template. Now, if I come back to my site here and I say I want to make a new news post, there is my cheeseburger news page template with my starting point here, and I can create a post. It's got my delicious header on there. It's got that image web part. It has my placeholder text here. There's our page template. So now I can do this, and I can post the news, and just like that, I've got a news page that is not showing up for some reason. Go ahead and refresh that.
Because you're doing a demo live.
It's because I'm doing a demo, exactly. But the page is there. You can see right there. So there's my template. I don't know why it's not showing up in my news feed, but at least it's sort of kind of
on the web part. That's usually what trips me up.
So next up, maybe it'll show up in a little bit. Next up, let's take a look at list templates real quick. So I want to make a new list. What do we get here? So this interface here is also relatively newish. I think probably by now it's rolled out for everybody. But we get these starter list templates from Microsoft. We have a blank list that we can start from. Right here is where we can browse our site for an existing list. So if I want to go through, I don't know, find this, this site here, and I want to make a copy of this IP addresses list, let's do that. What's my list about? Oh, probably IP addresses.
But one reason to fill out descriptions, just totally off topic, is this raises the likelihood of search bumping this up to the top of results. Description is the third heaviest weighted column for search.
And that's the thing that everyone leaves blank too.
Nobody fills it out.
And then we have the option to show this in our site navigation. So sure, why the heck not? So that's browsing my entire site, my entire tenant that I have access to for things like, a list that I want to reuse in another site. So here's my custom list with all my columns and everything. So that's cool. What if I want to not have to do that every time and find, all of my, if I don't want to, go through all of these things here? What if I want to just be able to pick that option as a list? Well, we can do that from your organization. This is not the same list, by the way. It's a totally different list, and hopefully it'll work. We can use these Microsoft templates to start out, or if our SharePoint admin was nice enough to save a list as a template for us, then we can pick one of these lists here. So I'm just gonna, pick this one here, and it kind of gives us a little preview, or maybe I think these are the exact same thing. They are, I believe. But we can pick one of these custom templates here. It'll give us a preview of everything that we're going to see. So there's like 97 columns in this or whatever. When I set this up in PowerShell, I picked this little color here, this little color block. It's kind of a extraneous little thing that you can set, but you do have the option. This one here is a little red bug, green cube, fun stuff like that. And then I can use this template. Then we go for the same interface here Do we want to show it in the site nav? Do we want to, give it a description so search likes it better? Then I can create, and just like that, in like 2 seconds, it creates this whole new information list for me. If I did have things like different views or formatted views or formatted columns, that also would be applied here. But this is just a very basic list. It just has a ton of columns in it. So finally, what does it look like when we apply a custom site design or site template? I'm still getting used to that term. As soon as this loads up here. So a site template we can find in our settings gear here. So apply a site template. Again, we start out from Microsoft here. They give us a lot of nice templates, and if you haven't played with some of these, they're a good starting point, honestly. So maybe we click on this and see what it's going to do. So they give us some quick link web parts, some document areas. So a lot of nice stuff on the page there. So let's just see what happens if I use Microsoft's template. It's going to go ahead and crank through this. Maybe a little slower than I thought it would, but.
And I was going to chime in there really quick, Ryan. So the selection of Microsoft templates that are available when you say apply a site template is dependent on what kind of site it is, right? So that this is a communication site.
Exactly.
You're gonna get the like 6 or 7 or however many communication site templates that Microsoft makes available to apply. But if it was a team site, you'd see a separate list of them.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So just with a couple of clicks, I've got now this built out site here, and it looks pretty nice. It's a good layout, nice imagery. It's just a good starting point, so you can kind of use this as sort of a stepping stone, I guess, to kind of fleshing out everything with your own content. So you can see they left my IP addresses, they left my information list here. They did give us a couple extra drop downs here in our navigation, again, as a starting point. But let's see, if we go back to apply a site template, I didn't point this out earlier, but you may recognize these last 3 here on the bottom row, the showcase, topic, and blank. These are the 3 default templates that we used to be able to pick from when we would create a new site. So this topic template here is exactly what we start out with on basically every SharePoint site. So let me just jump back to this one here, and then we'll see what happens when we apply our own. And they left the navigation alone on this one here, it looks like, but they did reapply all of that, all those out of the box web parts that we know and love. So what does it look like when we make our own site template? So that is, again, under apply site templates, and we have this from your organization tab. So again, this is all done from PowerShell. It was installed with PowerShell. I just took a screenshot of a site that had the custom theme installed, and then I provided that URL, uploaded that picture to a SharePoint site, and then provided the URL for this little background image, so you kind of get an idea of what to expect when you apply this. So if I click on that, what's it going to give me here? Instead of giving me the nice preview of the whole page with all the configured web parts like Microsoft does, it just gives me a list of the things that it's going to do. So it's going to apply my custom theme. It's going to set a couple of branding properties. It will actually apply a site logo for us. One thing to point out about that I have not mentioned yet is that updating the site logo using one of these site templates is only limited to communication sites. So if you're running these on a team site, that option will not work. It's one of those mysteries. It's documented. Microsoft built it that way on purpose, but updating a logo via one of these site templates will not work in a team site. Everything else will, but that's about the only thing that just doesn't work. It normally would have removed documents, pages, and site contents from the navigation, but since we applied one of those Microsoft templates, it's not going to. And then it will add a Pait group link to the site navigation. So if I click on use template, it's going to kind of refresh, and it's going to give me a little note here that it is applying that site template for me. So right now we see that it's got this blue theme applied. As soon as it's done, you can kind of sort of view the progress. It used to give us a nice little checklist of where it was at. It doesn't seem to do that anymore since they updated this interface. But in just a second, if I cancel out of this, this bar up here is going to turn green and tell us that it's ready. And because it's a demo, it's taking like 4 times longer than it normally does.
This is the way.
That is the way. Let's see if we just refresh. Maybe it's just not sure where it's at.
It's lost.
It is lost. It doesn't even know if it's doing anything or not. Let's see. Is it still doing anything?
Kick it.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's just try this. Apply it again.
Reboot, Ryan. Reboot.
All right. Maybe we won't poke it this time. Maybe we'll let it do its thing.
So you mentioned before too, though, if you go run something, if it's already done some things, it's not going to go try to redo them. It's just
Exactly.
going to go, oh, check.
Yep, exactly. So it's not going to explode your site in a ball of fire if you rerun this again. It's just going to see what's already been done. If it finds that it's already, set the logo, it's just going to skip that step. If it's needs to, remove some of those navigation links and they're already gone, it's just going to skip that step.
Okay. Makes sense. It operates on the delta.
Well, this is working well. I promised before this, it actually applied.
It's trying really hard.
It is. It's trying really hard. It's probably mad that I applied a Microsoft template before it or something.
Oh.
It just knows we're on a webinar doing a demo.
That's it.
It knows.
Well, I might have, let's see here. If I duplicate this tab, let's see if I have anything on this site here.
Joe says you should have sacrificed a cheeseburger to the demo guy. He's not wrong.
This is true. This is totally true. Well, this is what it normally would look like here. So once that applies over on my template webinar site, it will look exactly like this one. So you can see it set the logo, it set my custom theme here. It matches my sweet bar theme that I've already got installed. But this is that Contoso green theme. So we can see we've got our lovely green color here on our web parts and in the footer. It removed all of the navigation links. It set the header here. This is our compact. There we go. Now it's green. So this is our compact header here. It sets the header as the standard header, so it moves the navigation below the site title. And then it did add that Pait group logo. So now let's go back here and refresh this real quick and see what it actually looks like. And there we go. There's our Pait group. There's our 2 IP addresses and information list links that it left alone. Because we didn't tell it to remove these things here, those also stayed. So again, non-destructive. But then we also added that Pait group link. So we just, had to sit around for a few minutes longer than we thought we would. But it did save us clicks of having to, go up here and say, change the look. Go into my theme, find my Contoso green theme here and apply that. Or change the look and go into the header and add in a logo and set my my layout for my header to standard. Then we didn't have to go in here and remove a bunch of links from the navigation. It just did it all for us. The one thing that obviously it didn't do is create any lists, which I probably should have included for this demo since we talked about list templates and how it's nice using one of these site templates to create a whole bunch of lists for you. But we did at least see that looks and applies.
I'll just come back and knock on your door later. We'll do a quick webisode on that.
That's right.
Stay tuned, folks. More to come.
Wait, there's more. All right. I think that covers everything I was going to demo.
Love it. And then
Stop
phenomenal
that.
timing too.
Yes.
Now, those of you, if you are shy in chat, now we see who is not shy in chat. Joe, looking at you, Matthew, Lisa, keep it coming, keep it coming. Please go to chat, put your questions in. We are going to make the slides available as a resource along with a recording of this. Who's driving slides?
Me now.
Because I'm a slacker. Richard, if you just want to flash through the three that we really aren't going to spend any time on, just so you know it's there. Ryan was kind enough to include for us a couple of PowerShell examples on some slides for each of the basic types of templates.
Yeah.
So this will be available as a resource. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's that word again.
That's right.
But I mean, it's just, it is, right? It is what it is. We're okay with it. So, state of the template, right? Here's a quick summary. Kind of out of the box, you can do some stuff. If you need legit cookie cutter template functionality, what Pait Group does at this point in time is we go to a third party partner. We actually work with Orchestry. Because they let you set up a site exactly the way you want it, columns, default documents, page layouts, permissions, right, Richard? Am I forgetting permissions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. All the things, and you can make that your cookie cutter, and you don't have to use PowerShell to do that. Yeah, Joe, call me. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. And templating is really just one of the superpowers of the Orchestry software. So in addition to that, this whole ability to do provisioning through a workflow, and then the latest and greatest, which is all around managing the entirety of the life cycle of all things Teams and SharePoint. It's really a pretty amazing and impressive product. So yeah, if you have more interest, definitely reach out to us. Yeah,
happy to answer questions. Again, recording of this with Ryan's expertise. We can talk about the government stuff too, Joe. Don't worry, I got your back. But more to come. We've got your comments here. Some other things you'd like to see. It's like a walkthrough of the code and the PowerShell process. Okay. Search. I heard you, Scott. Okay. So stay tuned. Thank you for putting that information in. We appreciate it. And thank you for being here. Next up on our webinar agenda, Azure Files. Azure Files.
Kind of a comparison of like SharePoint file storage to Azure file storage. And I think it's going to be a good arm wrestling match, if you will. It's going to be a really good, good discussion.
Yeah, it's going to be a great discussion. Stephen Wilson's going to be highlighting his expertise on SharePoint, and we've got our partner from PEI. Being able to show off some Azure Files expertise and how these two things, while they're separate, they are not in direct competition with each other.
Yeah,
there's room for both. In fact, it makes a lot of sense if you need an archive solution. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Awesome. What is Azure Files?
Ooh.
Matthew, come to the webinar.
Sign up for the webinar. Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be there. It's gonna be there. We'll tell you all about it. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here.
Ryan, thanks so much for joining the webinar.
That was fun.
Your expertise is always incredibly amazing. So thanks for joining in, and and thanks everybody for joining. Definitely look for the next webinar. Please do sign up if you want to reach out to either Joy or I. Our contact info is there: Twitter, email, LinkedIn. Please connect with us. Thanks so much. You guys have a great rest of your week. Take care.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.